Okay, so I was saying, hello everyone, welcome to this Southern Corn webinar series, Alternatives to Study Medicine in the US, which is organized by Education USA, a network from the Department of State of the US that has over 400 centers around the world and aims to promote higher education in the US by offering precise, accurate, and objective information about study opportunities in the US. As I mentioned before, today we're going to talk about alternatives to study medicine in the US, and we have here with us Tanya Barajas from Binghamton University, who is going to lead this presentation and answer to all of your questions. Tanya is going to present, and then we're going to leave the portion of Q&A for the end. Once the presentation is over, we'll address all of your questions and concerns. Tanya, if you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here today to speak with all of you. As Sophia said, my name is Tanya Barajas, and I'm an admissions counselor in the undergraduate admissions office at Binghamton University in New York. So I'm going to share with you some alternatives to studying medicine and the reason and also the reasons for that. So we'll go ahead and get started here. So it's a question that comes up a lot. We get it a lot on the university side, and I'm sure the advisors within Education USA also receive this question pretty frequently at college fairs or other events. They ask undergraduate students or students who are in high school ask, how do I study medicine in your college or university? The thing about that is that medicine, although it exists as an undergraduate major in many colleges and universities around the world, in the US, medicine is not an undergraduate major. So typically students who do want to study and to become a medical doctor in the US, what they'll do is they will study first an undergraduate degree. They can study it in any area, and then they'll go on to medical school after that. So I'll look at that pathway. So how does that look? So we have 4 years of undergraduate study, and you can study in any major or any career. And typically students might be in a pre-med or a pre-health track along with that. And then students have to go into a US medical school. So there are some challenges for international students going into medical school. One is that not all US medical schools accept international students. Many of the ones that do tend to be private institutions, so they tend to be quite expensive. And the other thing is that there's sometimes a medical exam that students have to pass, so an exam called the MCAT, M-C-A-T, which is an entrance exam. Nationwide, the acceptance rate, or rather the pass rate for the MCAT is around 45%. So it is a very competitive process to get into the medical school. So once a student has gotten there, after that, there is another process, the medical residency process, which is usually 3 to 7 years, depending on what your specialty is. And this is also a competitive process to gain your medical degree. So just a little insight there. According to the Association of American Medical Colleges, in 2019 application cycle, 1,890 foreign applicants applied to MD or medical doctor granting programs in the United States, and 325 of those applicants were accepted. Of those accepted, 272 matriculated into a medical school. So this is just giving you, a very transparent picture of what a medical or an MD, medical doctorate degree, would look like. So with that, comes the theme of our session today: alternatives to becoming a medical doctor, because there are many ways that you can have an impact on community and global public health, and also healthcare, health research, without necessarily becoming very specifically a medical doctor. So think about why you are drawn to the health services. Maybe you're interested in it because you want to help people. Maybe you had a good experience with a healthcare professional. So for example, I've heard from students who were athletes, and during their time as an athlete, they might have broken an arm or broken a leg, or other area, and then they needed physical therapy, and they had a good experience with that physical therapist and were inspired themselves to become a physical therapist. So think about what draws you to healthcare and the health services, and that motivation. And we're going to talk about some other ways that you can apply that motivation in other spaces. So for example, you could become a medical researcher. That's a great way to get involved in healthcare, health services, and really have a big impact. It was medical researchers who do and who continue to do work on the COVID vaccine, for example, together working with laboratory scientists to experiment on what works and what doesn't work, and try to discover new solutions to these larger problems. Engaging in public health, thinking about how people in certain areas have access to healthcare, what impedes their access to healthcare, what helps them. Environmental health, especially with climate change right now, that's a big conversation within healthcare, how the environment affects your personal health, health policy. This is going more into the political side of things, engaging into the politics of healthcare, health education, also areas like nursing, psychology, social work, and even health administration, those kind of behind the scenes jobs that really help the healthcare industry to keep those wheels going. So just a few of other areas that students can go into. We're going to talk about a lot more. So as an undergraduate student, there are some majors, particularly within the hard sciences, that are pretty common that students can go into and that many international students go into. So for example, biological sciences. Biologists help us to better understand the needs of planet, the inhabitants of the planet, which include human inhabitants as well as animal inhabitants and plants, and to discover solutions for problems facing all inhabitants. We have students at Binghamton University, for example, who are doing research on things like climate change, animal habitats, and even COVID. Chemistry, another popular major. It's known as a central science. That's because fundamental principles of chemistry are such that they can be applied to art, they can be applied to anthropology, they can be applied to geology, materials science, and all of those disciplines can be understood in terms of chemistry as well. Traditional areas of study include analytical chemistry, inorganic chemistry, organic chemistry, and physical chemistry, just to name a few. But a lot of colleges and universities have other specialty versions of chemistry as well. Biochemistry, as you might have deduced from the name, is a combination of both biological sciences and chemistry. It combines the two disciplines. Students gain really skills that are necessary to apply to things like pharmacology, medical diagnostics, and this is for both humans and animals, biomaterials, engineering, bioremediation of pollution, food and drug regulation, improvement of plants and livestock through genetic engineering. So these are all things that certainly do affect human health and human access to healthcare. Another area that is popular, neuroscience or integrative neuroscience. It studies how the brain works. And it's a good preparation at the undergraduate level for graduate school if you want to continue on studying neuroscience, anatomy, physiology, pharmacology. You can also leverage neuroscience into a career in education or business or administration. It has a lot of core courses in psychology, math, chemistry and physics. So you start to see, as I go along talking about some of these common undergraduate majors, that there is a lot of interdisciplinary activity that's taking place. They don't exist in a vacuum, and they have multiple applications across the field and also across, future career pathways. With biomedical engineering, this encompasses areas of biology, physiological, medical, social systems. Students are learning about biodevices, they're learning about pharmaceuticals, biomechanics, bioinformatics. Students are doing research in things like biomolecular and tissue engineering. So things like biofilms to help you heal on your skin, complex systems and artificial life, and also stem cell and 3D printing, just to name a few of the research areas that students may get involved with. With nursing, this is an undergraduate degree area. So it's one that, Binghamton also offers. We offer a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. And actually the picture on this screen is showing a nursing student with what looks like a very realistic looking patient, but is actually a simulation, a doll actually that is in our simulation lab, but it looks very real here in the picture. The academic coursework that nurses take combines this hands-on learning experiences. So, before nurses actually draw blood from a human patient, they might draw blood on a simulation patient like the one shown in this picture in an offsite clinical rotation, and they're prepared to take an exam called the NCLEX to get their registered nursing license here in the US. So they're prepared to go into things like pediatric nursing, geriatric nursing. They could work in cities, they could work in rural health, they can work in cardiovascular nursing, just to name a few. And psychology. Psychology is interesting because it could be, very research-based, very academic, or it could be very science-based too. This is a popular major on many college campuses. Students can earn up to a master's or a PhD in psychology. It's a degree that can be applied to different industries because it develops critical and analytical and scientific reasoning, as well as research and communication skills. So employers love students who have those particular skills. It's also good preparation for grad school, and you can do lots of research topics, even video game user research. So I'm going to play a video from you that we have. You're going to hear from one of our current psychology students.
Hey everyone, my name is Lauren Gutierrez. I'm a junior at Binghamton University. I'm from Staten Island, New York, and I'm a psychology major, and I'm going to tell you about it in 60 seconds. I chose this major because I took AP Psychology in high school and absolutely fell in love with it and decided to continue the major in college. My favorite class so far has been perception. It's really interesting because it tells us about how and why we perceive the things that we do, and the professor makes it really, really interesting. Something that surprised me about this major was that it was more research-based, and so it was treated as a hard science at Binghamton rather than a social science like at other colleges, and I really, really loved that. And in 5 to 10 years, I hope to see myself working in forensic psychology, and I'd actually really love to work for the FBI and their behavioral analysis unit. And that's the psychology major at Binghamton University in 60 seconds.
That's a good transition. A lot of the majors that I shared with you are majors within what are considered the hard sciences, but here's some other majors that you can consider that do have a lot of applications within health. Anthropology, for example, examines cultures, it examines societies, how language influences your worldview, evidence of the human past through archaeological record, through human biological evolution, and that interaction of history and culture in shaping our health practices across the globe. Also, very good preparation for graduate school later on if you'd like to continue into graduate school. Environmental sciences is very important right now. Environmental sciences and environmental studies. Students look at that intersection between the natural world and the human world on multiple scales. They're learning about the environment, they're learning about economics and equity, and learning how to do research, collecting research methods and collecting data analysis. They're engaging in sustainability concepts, which are all really important issues, and also, evaluation of the environment and policy, political policy and environmental action. This picture that you see here is from our Binghamton University greenhouse. It shows this flower, which I don't know the scientific name for, but it's also known as the corpse flower because it's very stinky and it blooms once a year. So that's what that flower is. Another major that students can go into, which some don't often think of when they think of health, is history. Students can study areas like women and gender in history, imperialism, environmental history, history of science, history of technology and medicine. There's also a lot of opportunity to do study abroad in history. So, students are very much encouraged to not only look at history in the context of one place, but in many places. And history is a good preparation for things like a Master of Public Administration or continuing studies within history. Human development. Within a major like human development, students are engaging in critical exploration of social, cultural, and economic, historical, and political frameworks, and the ways in which individuals, families, and communities are situated within them, right? How is it based on our family culture, based on our community culture, that we make the choices that we do, that we reach for the food that we reach for, that we treat our illnesses the way that we treat them? So that's kind of how human development and health come together. Students are developing skills to promote and enhance diversity, equity, and social justice as well. Looking at that disparity of access to health and why that is and how that is happening for different groups in different places around the world. Very good preparation for, working in human services, working in schools, working in government and healthcare settings as well. Things like social work, very similar. Students are exploring things like historical oppression, structural inequality, and they're working towards navigating these complex systems. Students are preparing for future careers in places like child welfare, criminal justice, places that serve people who have substance abuse issues or healthcare, mental health issues, and education. Sociology, much like anthropology, is looking at those relationships that people have. Students are acquiring skills to see the social world from a critical perspective, developing analytical tools to understand political life, social movements, social conflicts, and issues of social justice as well. Students are prepared for careers in social work. So even though these are two different majors, they could hand in hand find a career pathway towards the same path. Also law, education, things like journalism, urban planning, that has a big effect on human health as well. Doing market research, working with non-governmental organizations and foundations, or working with programs that help to address things like domestic violence and homelessness. Those are issues that absolutely have a huge impact on human health. Economics is one that, students usually think of economics, they think of business administration, but students who take coursework in economics analysis, they can really apply those to financial economics, economic policy analysis. Finances do play a part in human health as well, and that accessibility to wealth, or rather inaccessibility to wealth, for a lot of people. And then finally, we have women, gender, and sexuality studies. So this is a transdisciplinary study area. It explores gender and the relationship to things like race, class, ethnicity, nationality, religion, and sexuality, all of which are connected to human health, because, you know, if you are not presenting in a way, your gender or your sexuality in a way that is considered appropriate for your community or where you're from, you know, that will affect your access to things like healthcare. So some other majors for you to consider as you think about health, as you think about human services, and as you think about your future with contributing to the health of people. What's nice about many of our US institutions is just the variety of courses and interdisciplinary study opportunities that students have. So these are just a few of the courses that we have at Binghamton University that students can find: exploring queer lives, statistical analysis and design, social welfare, policy and programs, chemical principles, humans and ecological environment, language, culture, and communication. It's possible to take a combinations of these courses or all of them in some cases. A lot of the majors that I shared with you are complementary to each other, which you could probably see just based on their descriptions and based on that cross-disciplinary activity that's happening. So it's not uncommon for students to maybe start in psychology, but change their minds, go into environmental studies, or do a double major, or study a major and a minor in a particular area to get that right combination of interests that they want to pursue. Benefits of undergraduate research. So a lot of the fields that I mentioned did have a research component. There are many benefits to undergraduate research, and something that if you are interested in health that you may want to look for. You can get guided by an experienced faculty member. So it's a great way to make that one-on-one connection pretty early on with the faculty member in the school that you may be attending. In lots of cases, you could produce original research. So in some cases, you're joining a lab that is already in existence, and you're contributing to furthering a particular project of that lab. But in other cases, you might be able to come with your own ideas and get support for those ideas, get mentoring and guidance on producing that work. You definitely are gaining hands-on research experience. You're producing actual work. It's not going to be a practice, but it'll be put into place. And once you've produced that, you're going to want to share it. So there'll be opportunities for you to prepare and present. You can present at your campus. You can present to your department, to your peers, but you may also be taking that presentation of your work nationally to conferences or to other spaces. You can really start to build powerful relationships and networks within whatever field you're doing work in, with your professors and also advisors. And this is going to be great professional development and networking for you. And you're going to be working on these global issues, many of which I mentioned in the previous slide. So after you graduate, once you've completed your undergraduate degree and looking forward onto those next steps, you can see this is just an example of so many different career paths that you could have other than becoming a medical doctor. You can be a clinical researcher, a health educator, a writer, public policy maker, a human rights activist, a scientist, all of which are going to have an impact, and all of which are necessary in order to deliver high quality human health around health services around the world. Okay, let's get into some helpful tips. If you're currently a high school student or maybe thinking about transferring to a US institution, some things that you can look for and some things that you can ask about. Look for schools that have more than one program that you are interested in. What's so nice about US institutions is you can come with an open mind. You can come as an undecided student or an undeclared student in many cases. You can try courses out. You'll have some time to hone in on your interests before you need to declare a major. You'll still be making progress towards your ultimate degree. You'll still graduate on time. And during that time, you'll be able to speak with peers. You'll be able to speak with professors. You'll be able to look at labs, look at the work that's being produced, and really think if that's the kind of work that you want to get into. So look for schools that have at least a couple programs that you might be interested in, just so you can have the most options available for you. And if you do change your mind about a particular program, you won't have to start all over again from scratch. You can just kind of switch between those majors pretty easily in most cases. Ask about research opportunities for undergraduates. There is a large culture of undergraduate research here in the US. And so asking about what kinds of opportunities are available and really taking that into consideration for the schools that you plan to apply to could be very helpful for you. Ask about advising and support services. You want to know, how would you be supported with that research? How would you be supported with your ultimate professional goals? What kind of professional development is available in whatever areas that you plan to go into? What kind of opportunities are there for you to present your work or to collaborate? Is there a student magazine, or is there a professional journal that you might be able to publish in at some point? These are all going to be really great resources for you to have on whatever campus you decide to go to. Consider faculty research areas. So this is actually an advanced tip. Usually it's something that graduate students will do is they'll look into the research that faculty are doing on a particular campus, because graduate students will work with a particular professor or particular group of professors in a certain area. But you certainly can do that as an undergraduate student if you are interested in. So one of the areas I mentioned is history. You can always go to that department's webpage. You can see a list of the faculty that work for that particular department, and you can see the work that each faculty member has done. Many faculty members, professors, they have a particular research area that they are experts in. So that might inform your decision to apply and maybe later on attend a certain school, because you want to work with a particular professor who has experience in a certain area. So that's kind of an advanced tip, but it's a very good one. Talk to current students. Many colleges and universities have ways for you to connect with current students. At Binghamton University, students can connect with our current students through Unibuddy on our website. It's a chat function, but other schools might have other outlets, so it's absolutely okay for you to ask. You can always email that school to say, hey, what's the best way for me to communicate with a current student at your school or a current student in your department, and we'll be happy to help you out. And remember that growth happens outside of your comfort zone. So you might have come to today's presentation thinking, nope, I just wanted to be, a medical doctor, maybe something else. But hopefully, you want to, college is a time for you to be exposed to many things. So leave some room available, in your heart and in your mind to be exposed to things that you hadn't thought of before. All right, so this is my information. Feel free to take a picture of that QR code if you'd like to receive more information from Binghamton. You can also send me an email at international@binghamton.edu. But at this time, and I can come back to this page in a little bit, but we're going to go ahead and move to the question and answers that we have.
Thank you very much, Tanya. That was very informative. We appreciate it a lot. I don't know if anybody here has a question and they would like to ask. Okay, so we have one in the chat. They say, what if I'm a medical specialist in Argentina for ex-clinical genetist and I want to work in the US?
Yeah, so working in the US is going to be its own process. You know, for students who are already here in the US, they might have access to something called curricular practical training, or CPT. This is something that they can do while they're students, or for students that are graduating, maybe OPT, which is like an occupational practical training program. If you already have credentials in your home country and you want to work in the US, you might need to check in with the location that you're interested in working for to see about getting your home credentials reviewed for the US. Sophia, do you have other advice on that front?
I would suggest, like, I agree with everything that you said, do some research to see how that would be validated to work in the US. And also, of course, maybe even contact an education university advisor to see how that could, further happen, or, a way to be guided to do so. I don't know if anybody else has another question. Okay, apparently that seems to be it. You were very thorough, Tanya, and no one has questions.
Let's see. Oh, we got one.
Oh, good.
Hi, how does the scholarship work with people like us? Yeah, so that's a very good question. Scholarships are going to vary depending on institution. So at Binghamton University, students are eligible for merit-based scholarships. So this is, based on the whole part of your application. And our highest scholarship covers about 25% of the total cost of attendance, but that's just for Binghamton. Other universities might have a scholarship application that you fill out, or they might require an exam like the SAT or ACT. So you do need to check with each university to see what their policies are in terms of scholarship. Some universities offer need-based scholarship. Binghamton does not. So everyone is going to be a little bit different.
Yes, absolutely. And then we have another question, which is somewhat similar to what you have already answered, which is, what is the highest percentage of scholarships for international students if they would like to study their undergraduate major in the US? And I think, again, we go back to what you just mentioned. It's going to vary institution from institution. So it's important for students to do, research and explore the websites of the institutions they're interested in.
Yeah, the medical science liaison work requires the USMD. That's a good question. I'm not as familiar with that particular degree program. I think working with an Education USA advisor, you can definitely look to see which colleges and universities offer a liaison work program, and because there are definitely some that do require an MD and some that are that don't, that even some that maybe require a GRE, which is a graduate exam that some students take. But as we are moving along, even those institutions, many of them are becoming those GREs are becoming optional. So it depends. It really does change over time. The key is to identify the institutions that offer the program that you're looking for, and B, do accept international students.
Another question is it possible to get into undergraduate research if I'm not attending a US university?
So is that, well, for example, research in your home country? I
don't know, it doesn't really specify. I don't know if she would
Sorry,
like to clarify
hi.
a little bit.
Hello, yeah, sorry, that was my question.
Okay.
I'm finishing medical school in Argentina, and I would like to get into research in the US, but before I take the STEP exams, I know that I'm not licensed to be a medical doctor in the US. That's why I asked if there was a way to get into research in the US before I get my medical license in the country. Sorry, I don't know if I was.
I think I understand. So it sounds like you're already enrolled in a medical school in Argentina. You may be eligible to apply for like a postdoctoral program if you're going to receive your doctorate degree in Argentina, which would allow you to do research, graduate level research actually, with a professor or within a particular lab in the US. So you would have to kind of do some work to look and see which schools are accepting postdoctoral applications.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Very good questions. Thank you, everybody. This is hopefully an interactive, feel free to give a hands up or thumbs up. If you feel good about what you heard today. I want to make sure that you leave here with the information that you came to receive. So don't be shy. Feel free to go ahead and enter those questions in the chat or unmute if you are comfortable with that.
Okay, well, it seems that no one has any other questions. I don't know if someone would like to ask one final question or. Well, I would like to thank you, Tanya, for being here with us and for all the information you've provided, and for everyone who is here with us. If you have any further questions after this presentation, please feel free to contact us with any queries that may arise. And I would like to thank all of you also for taking the time and participating in this webinar session about alternatives to study medicine in the US. Thank you all very much. Bye.
Everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.